right, my friends. Eric Andres, YourGuitarSage here. Papastache,
Woo-hoo!
also known as Brett Papa. And we are live. Now I gotta skip this ad.
Dude, check you out. You got like big screens.
What's
and
going on?
So
There we are. Look.
professional now.
Wanking away there. Who's that?
Some Yahoo.
Yeah, right.
Some Yahoo invaded your studio.
All right, good. Everything's going as planned. So we're just gonna do a little live impromptu webcast today on how to come up with melodies, how to come up with solos, and this whole concept really of melodies and solos when it comes to guitar. And I like to say melodies because I think solos sometimes intimidate people. Oh, go solo now,
Right,
you know?
yeah.
So
When did you
melodies, where'd you go? So really what we're talking about is just coming up with melodies, because I get, and I'm sure you get it too, you get so many emails of people saying, hey, I know this scale, but for whatever reason, I can't make it sound like you, or I can't make it sound like Hendrix, or I can't make it sound good. So give me a scale that works. Well, it's not about the scale, it's about how to use it. Just like Brett and I were talking earlier, and it was like, you know, if you go to a new country, right? And you're going to Spain, never spoke Spanish before. If someone handed you a Spanish dictionary and said, dude, this is every word that you're ever going to need to know, you're set.
Right.
You'd be like, well, that isn't really going to help me.
Yeah.
I need to know where's the bathroom, and I kind of need to know it right now.
Right. Pretty much.
So learning phrases like where's the bathroom, hello, thank you, those sorts of things in a language is very important, because that's the stuff you're going to be using 99% of the time. The other 1% of the time you're never going to use the rest of that dictionary. So it's good to know that stuff. But my take on it, and I want to get your take on it, is you know, if you learn some real just like basic phrases, and what I mean by phrases is like we speak. We don't speak in monotone like this, just continuously, just droning on, and we, you know, there's ebb and flow in our.
Do.
Exactly. Will Ferrell. With his, did you ever see that skit with the I have voice and modulation, and he just talks.
That's awesome.
But you know, having phrases like ba-dum-bum-bum-bum, you know, that's a phrase.
Sure.
It's not just like mindlessly playing through the scale.
It's
so
like
how do we do that?
Sentences
You know,
and paragraphs.
yeah. So how do we do that?
Right.
We'll jump to some questions, but well, in just a minute. So what's your take on that, man?
You know, when people start soloing, I think that if you could just get like the pentatonic shapes under your fingers, right? That's kind of the roadmap. And then if you can start to see the chords inside those five shapes, of whatever progression you're playing, that's gold. That's like the destination of where you want to get to. So I think if you can. And start basic, you know what I mean? It's especially if you're already, say, an intermediate player and you have some technique, but you want to be more melodic.
Yeah.
It's all about the chords at that point. You know what I mean? Because if you can get around, then once you see the chords, then you'll be able to use your riffs, but with a reason, not just noodling and hoping that you land on the right notes.
Exactly.
But if you're just starting out soloing, it's almost.
And can I interrupt you real quick? And what you're saying there with the chords, you know, if that sounds like what was he talking about, the chords? We're talking about melodies now.
Right.
What Brett's saying is like being aware of what chord is being played at any given point in time in a song. Usually it's 3 or 4 chords being repeated over and over again.
Sure.
So you get to feeling that, but the whole point of that is knowing that it's just like a conversation. If Brett and I are talking and we're talking about guitars, and I'm just going on and on about Fender, and then he starts talking about Gibson, but I keep talking about Fender. You know, it's like we're kind of not. Am I not listening to him? And that's the conversation that goes on with music. If you don't know what that chord is, then I mean, you can kind of do some stuff by ear and kind of noodle your way, like you could BS through a conversation that you don't know anything about.
Yeah.
But it's helpful to know what's that chord at that moment in time.
Yeah, and so like I guess a concrete example of that would be like, say you're in A minor pentatonic doing like a 1-4-5. Right. Well, your position 1's right here, but your A minor chord's right there too. So the notes that are really going to sound good are already, you know, underneath your fingers right here. So if you know, like, that's the third of the chord, that's the note that makes it sound, you know, major or minor.
And you're just outlining that actual
chord. You're just
chord.
outlining that chord. and so in a 1-4-5, the D minor chord is right there too, right? Right, so that's obviously if you're in the beginning stages, that phrasing isn't available to you, but those little note clusters are.
Yeah. Stefan is saying just play.
And most of the like the great solos and stuff, even like to go back to Neil Young and stuff like that, it's really simple phrasing.
Yeah, and like just taking that chord progression there that Brett just mentioned, just like that A minor, D minor. You could just play the A minor pentatonic over that whole thing. But this is a perfect scaled down version of maybe a more complex chord progression where you're just going back and forth between these two chords. Or you could stay on that chord for 4 measures, on each one of those chords for 4 measures, and then just outlining the chord like you mentioned, and then you can kind of go in between, in and out of that pentatonic scale, but being aware of what that form is. Yeah,
and knowing that the chord. So I always like to start with the pentatonic shapes, because if you start with the pentatonic shapes and then you hyperimpose those chords on top, you're going to inadvertently start learning the modes. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because once you do this, right, you're like, oh, okay, A minor. Well, those are all the notes in that pentatonic scale. But once I get here, that note isn't in the scale, but it's one of the chords being played, so that note is now accessible to you. Yeah. You know what I mean? So once you start to see that within the context of a chord progression, like, oh, that note isn't in the scale. Oh, that note is in the scale. And what's happening is you're seeing the other notes that make the modes, basically.
Yeah, indeed.
Without having to know all the fancy Greek names or whatever.
Indeed. And I think the more that you think simply, the better it's going to be, which is perfect for beginners, because that's how we have to think, right? We've got to think very simply. Should we look through some of these questions, man?
Yeah, man.
Let's see what we got. Let's see if we got any questions. We got a lot of kids writing in already. No giveaways today, my friends.
Well, you're giving away your time, your commitment to the instrument.
My love.
Your love.
Let's see here. Sweet Home Alabama.
I can kind of play that one.
Yeah.
What's that first one? I got a funny story about that. So, Tim Pierce.
So we'll talk about Akash's Please Tell Me About Chasing the Chords.
Oh, okay.
So similar to what we were just talking about. But
so funny story about the Sweet Home Alabama. So Tim Pierce does a lesson on that on YouTube.
Right.
Great lesson. It was freaking sick because Tim's just amazing, right?
Yeah.
And the guy who
does he go into like the whole deal about that chord progression being kind of like wonky?
Yeah, well,
like
no, really. He's just kind of teaching how to play the song, right?
Yeah, okay.
And great job.
Yeah.
But the guy who originally wrote the song messages him, and he's like in his pajamas on his iPhone, and he goes, "It was a great lesson, but you're playing it wrong." And instead of like him playing the song, it was awesome that he showed it to me. I was like, dude, that's amazing.
Was this he was doing a live show?
No, Tim would just put up a YouTube video.
Oh,
like we teach songs or whatever.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So who is this guy? This guy here.
Some wingnut.
Is Papastache, and if you don't know him, Stefan, you need to. Fantastic player, just real organic. Just real organic. He likes to say he doesn't know music theory, but he does, but it's in an organic way. It's in a way where, like, without the labels and what have you, and which is perfectly fine. It's a fantastic way to learn. In fact, it's using your ear, it's using shapes, it's using patterns, all the rest. And he is a phenomenal player and can show you some really killer stuff. So.
Thank you.
Okay, so going a little bit further with this chasing the chords bit. So can I play a little, I'll just play like a basic, like 50s, C, A minor, F, G.
Okay.
And but I'm going to do it real slow, okay? And can you go over kind of the way that you're thinking about the chords when you're playing, and then talk about those shapes, and I can stop and what have you during
like
it.
Play C major pentatonic?
Yeah, C major pentatonic, but then also, like, I'm going to say the chords, and then maybe they can... they can even see what you're doing. I'll tell you what, that one may be a little bit more complex. Let's do this. Let's go back and forth between D minor, or the A minor, D minor.
Check this out.
Okay.
We'll do F, C, G. How about that?
Yeah.
That's simple, right? G major pentatonic. So, I like to relate everything to the pentatonic scale. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to find out that first in the brain. Right? Mm-hmm. And then that's my bass. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing I'm going to do is just pay attention to where those chords are. Right? Well, I don't even really have to get out of that position to solo, right? So if you're playing the chords, like the F. Right? And I'm just paying attention to it like... So all I'm doing is I'm just trying to once I know that home bass is right here. Well, when you play the F chord, right, I can stay in position 1, and I know that this is going to be a really good note because that's part of that F chord, right?
Right.
It's really one of the only accessible notes. Well, I guess this one too. So, right, if you just play the F chord.
Yeah.
Right, and then I know I'm going to a C chord, so that has an open G.
Nice.
Right, so you got that, and then to the G. And that's when it's cool to know one other pattern. See, I have this G chord right here. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll just hit the 2 really important notes of that chord, which is the 3rd and the root. So it's a combination of just using very simple pentatonic phrases or scale shapes, and then just trying to find out, like in the span of 5 frets, let's say, where those chord shapes fall.
Yeah.
And like the F's here, and does it occur somewhere else? What? Right there, right?
Yeah.
You got C. You got your G. You have to go a little bit farther up for like the typical shapes that I like to use.
Yeah.
That right here.
Yeah.
So once you know those, it's just like looking for the chords rather than just looking for the scale.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's how I do it.
Yeah, I think that's great. No, I mean,
so I play. Hey, when did you go?
I guess if I was taking something like this, I might think of I know, just like, see, the way my brain thinks is like if I have an F and a C, I guess I'm thinking, I guess that would be in G, but there's that F, which this is funny because this is where someone who knows traditional music theory, because I took it in school, is that where sometimes...
Does that turn it into Mixolydian, or what does that turn it into?
Well, it turns it into Mixolydian, okay. Yeah. This is a fairly important bit, I think, is that knowing the construction of the major scale.
Yeah,
whole step, half, whole, half. And that because of that, we get these diatonic chords that naturally occur in music. And the chords, if in a major scale, are major 1, minor 2, minor 3, major 4, major 5, minor 6, and like a diminished 7.
Yeah.
Which what that F chord here is actually playing a flatted 7, major 7 chord, which is used a lot in country and rock, and it's just like a sound. And I don't know which came first, if it was just because it felt right, because no one wants to play
I don't even know how to play that.
An F sharp diminished chord there. It's going to sound jazzy, but that sounds rock and roll. So I guess if I was thinking at this chord progression, I guess I would think of it as I would be playing in the key of G, but when that F comes along, I might have to alter that note a little bit. You know what I mean? That's how I would think about it. But see, again, this is where the whole ear thing and music theory, if you hold on to both of them loosely, they can guide you because you're going back and forth. If the rules of theory say, well, you can't play an F in a particular key, or you can't play that scale, well, get rid of that.
Yeah.
Because it's art, and so we should be able to do whatever we want. And this is where your ear is saying, well, this will work. Insert
Hendrix and Van Halen.
Oh my God, yeah, and You know, it's funny because I always talk about angles, like different perspectives of looking at music. I've been playing for 30-something years. Brett came to town a few weeks ago, or a few months ago when we first met each other, and I was asking him the way he thinks about this subject right here, and he's like, "This is kind of how I think," and so it's exactly the kind of stuff that we're going over. And even though everything he was saying resonated with me, and I'm like, "Well, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's sure," but truth of it is, I don't really think of stuff. I don't think of the melodies in the chords like that. So us just sitting down together was very refreshing because it made me think of this different way of really thinking about those chords while I'm playing. Because usually for me, I'm doing that, but I'm just doing it by ear. But it would be helpful to go, well, now where's that chord going? Oh, it's a D minor. Right away, you've got that.
Yeah.
David Gilmour was like he's like a freak at that. If you follow the solos in Comfortably Numb, he really does it. He really outlines those chords all the time. So it's pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, he is awesome.
Let me see if there's any other questions here that we can get to, and then you let me know to Papa if there's something else that you want to mention here. Is there any major minor in pentatonic? Is there any major minor in pentatonic? I'm not sure what you mean by that, but let's talk about.
Well, so there's the major pentatonic and the minor pentatonic. So if we're in G, the major pentatonic, but that same shape that we just did, the exact same shape I just did. If you're in G minor pentatonic, you start at the root note.
Yeah.
The fun comes when you mix the two together and you get the
those country licks. Yeah,
right?
I love that stuff.
But there's a major and a minor pentatonic, but they're the exact same shape. They're just in different spots. So if you're in minor, you just look for the root note on the 6th string, and that's your first finger starts that position 1. Now, if you want to find major, you drop that note down 3 frets. In this case, it's open. So it'd be.
Yeah.
That's the easy way to do it.
Yeah, and then something else that you could do is like so this is the weird thing about bluesy type of playing is that even though for the most part, these 7th chords, like if we're playing like an A7, D7, E7, A7, E7, those are all major chords, but usually when folks are soloing to that, they're using the minor pentatonic.
Right.
Like they'll use A minor pentatonic over that whole thing, or A minor blues, and it sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
And you could use A major pentatonic as well.
I like to use the A minor scale in that instance,
but throw in that.
Find the major chords inside of that box, so I know that A minor's there. So you can. But you have your A major chord right there.
Yeah.
Also, so that's when you do the. All those kind of notes come in.
Yeah. So. He said the volume knobs have fallen off. I was hoping he was.
I thought he meant the volume of the track. Yeah, no, I cannot see what happens as I go like this a lot when I play, and it just.
Your philosophy is play at 11 and that's it.
Get it out of the way, and my tone knob doesn't work either. It's
nice.
Just this. This is all I got. It's enough for me to think about.
It just says good. Doesn't matter where you put
good
it.
And good.
Just good.
Yeah. If all I have to think about is this and that,
You're set.
Shape,
You're set. So, to summarize, you can throw in that major note in there. I find it works best when you're on the A. I don't know if that note would work in there on the D7 or the E7 on the 4 or 5 chord, would it?
Rip past it.
yeah, you can throw that major note
Sparingly.
in there, but
Yeah.
and also this little
Yeah, totally.
you can throw in a little pinch of it there as
Little love.
well.
Yeah, and so one of the ways to use that
Is that the guy from the Drake and Josh band?
It is.
It is. How about that?
Yeah.
Right? Someone from your,
Way
from your
back in the
Disney
day.
days. He
That's
is the
right.
guy from the
Little
Drake.
Nickelodeon.
Were it Nick or
Yeah, Nickelodeon,
all right.
yeah.
Sure. That's right. Nice. All right. From Germany. Favorite song. What's your favorite song to play? Papa.
Question. I don't know.
To the best guys on the web. Thank you.
Van Halen, something.
Yeah, Van Halen's something, right? How awesome would it be if Justin were here too?
Yeah.
That would be great.
We'd get 'em
Let's
all.
get Justin, Marty in here. And,
Blow out a wall. Be perfect.
Yeah. Eric, could you give me some tips on Travis picking?
Is that like?
Yeah.
picking?
Well, Travis picking is kind of a. I mean, it's finger picking, but
Yeah.
it's this idea of using the thumb to play notes back and forth. So
Oh, right, like doom, doom, doom.
yeah,
Right.
I'll cover it really quickly because we're not really doing that today. But the idea is, playing something that would allow your thumb to go back and forth.
Close
like
like in
a-
rock and roll.
So if you watch my thumb here. So that's a
Wow,
tune I don't
that's
practice
super
very
cool.
often, so it's kind of all over the place. But the idea here's a great little exercise that you could practice.
Much Johnny Cash tunes kind of go that route too.
I was just gonna say, yeah,
Yeah.
Johnny Cash, totally. Like you take a Folsom Prison Blues. This thing is, I should have tuned this guy beforehand. But when you're doing Travis picking, a lot of times, well, first off, if you could just summarize it into two things, I'd say the thumb is taking over the bass note, and there's an alternating bass note, which is very common for country western type of music.
It's almost a way to play bass and rhythm at the same, or bass
Yeah.
and lead at the same time.
So a simplified version of playing like you would the thumb would go back and forth between the 1 and the 5 of the chord.
Oh, all right.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So if you just think of that, and if you're saying, well, what's the 5 of the chord? If you're on the 6th string, then the 5 is always down 1 string, up 2 frets. That's how to find the 5 always.
Right.
If you're on the 5th string, it's on the 6th string, this on the same fret. So for instance, watch this. So like here's a D. If we wanted to know what the 5 of that chord is, it's on the 6th string. Okay, so if you were playing a D chord, you could go. Probably wouldn't do that sort of thing, but with bar chord, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
So you're bopping back and forth between here. Or you could, if you were on the 5th string, you go down 1 string and up 2 frets and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the basics of Travis picking. I mean,
I like that.
I teach it in a lot more detail in the courses, but hopefully that'll help you out. Okay, let's look at some other questions here. What's this? Lewis saying, I got a question. Is there some sort of method to know which chord follows to the one you're playing? I'm trying to create something, but I lose the melody when I play another chord. Do you have anything that you want to say about that one? Do you
Explain that to me. So,
basically he's saying, how do I know what would be the next chord that follows?
so if he had a melody in his head.
Yeah.
Right. That's interesting because I know a couple writers that think that way. And
Yeah.
And a lot of times it doesn't necessarily follow a strict, major
Yep.
chord progression. They just-
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. It's kind of like when people try to create these things on the neck that seem easy, and then when you get through them, you're like, well, that wasn't easy at all. That's really difficult. So
Yeah.
like I wouldn't use a method like that. So, but the same thing, like in regards to chords and how they follow each other and what have you, there for sure are rules
Yeah.
that aren't rules. They're just more like, well, this is how our ears are used to hearing
Yeah.
them.
Or if
But it's so diverse that to say, well, it usually goes this route
Yeah.
is not very. Although with that being said, after you say what you're going to say, I'm going to tell you a few very, very common chord progressions that happen all the time.
I would say that if you know that your melody follows a particular scale and a particular key, look for the notes in your melody, like say it's, I don't know, to do it offhand. Look for, if you know that's in G major, say, or whatever, look for chords that have those notes in it.
Which are actually the first 3 notes to Purple Haze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can,
So he's playing right over that chord, which is a major chord.
Take the notes of your melody and say, okay, this is whatever note. What chord has that note in it that I could use? Oh, okay, my G chord is right, and then take this next note. What note is that? Oh, it's a D note. And then what's that? That's a G. So I can go back to here, or I go to C. Just think of the yeah, that's what I would do. I would take those notes in your melody and try to think of chords that have those notes in it and see if it works.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Pick and it could be almost be anything. Sometimes like you want to go by rules, but then there's Nirvana, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Break all the rules, but his melodies are genius. Or Green Day's another perfect example.
Yeah, yeah.
Insane melodies.
Yeah,
like,
a lot of punk bands do that.
Yeah.
They throw in those chords that just you're like, whoa, that's cool.
Yeah. And so that's a perfect example of not having to always stick to music theory.
Yep.
But finding a way to make your melody work with chords. So I would do that. I would go and I would say, what chord can I draw from? Because oftentimes, this note here could be a part of a bunch of different chords. So just start fooling around with, where that note is and putting your fingers around to see what kind of chords you can make out of it.
Yeah. I used to do that a lot when I was a kid because I really like the sound of melody that doesn't move with every single chord, like where there's droning notes. And so exactly what Brett is talking about there. So if you took a chord progression, let's say you took like your classic C, A minor, F, G, which is just like that classic
Sleepwalk.
Yeah. So if you did that and you said, well, here's a C, and this note here is a C, and it's in the C chord, so that's great. It works for that. Over the A minor, there it is again, and for the F, there it is again, and for the G, it's not, unless we suspended the chord. So a perfect example is like if you were to come up with some sort of part, you could keep that little guy in there. Thing I did there really is I just played the 2 top strings. I played the exact thing Brett was playing, except I played the 2 top strings and just kind of made a little bit of a melody out of it.
Right.
Literally, if you just practice doing that, you will end up soloing and coming up with licks and coming up with ideas, but you'll be in a safe spot.
Yeah.
And then you can grow from there. Everybody tries to make things complicated right away. Don't make things complicated. Make them simple.
Yeah.
And then work out.
I would say
from there.
One of the best ways to do that too is to learn Hendrix songs like "Bold as Love" or "Little Wing," because he plays lead and rhythm at the same time, and so you can see what works in that way. Like because when he's like that sort of a thing when Hendrix always does it, or any of the songs where he's like. He's always playing rhythm and lead at the same time.
Yeah,
so you get to see, like he's playing out of those chords and look how it moves.
Yeah.
Or "Bold as Love" is my favorite because it's more in a major sounding, and it really helps you because oftentimes major pentatonic's pretty tough to learn for most people because they're so used to learning
So
minor
used to,
first.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that song shows you how to really create major pentatonic guitar
Yeah.
licks.
Nice.
Oh, you got to learn that.
Okay,
Everyone has
nice.
to learn that song. It's amazing.
Nice. I'm gonna take your advice on that.
Yeah,
man.
no, that's amazing. It's funny because after coming up with that, I'm like, oh, he's using the major scale to do this, and then I created some videos on it too. And then Joe Satriani, I watched a video on him playing the major, and talking about Hendrix and playing major scales too. And I was like, that's it. Like that's how he does it. He did a great lesson on it.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
I'll have to check that out.
Super cool.
So so let's talk real quick. We'll talk about chords. You have a tonal center, right? Every song has a tonal center, just like it has a title. So bold as love, it's going to be something about love, I would guess, and something about it being bold, or you know what I mean? Like there's a subject, and then we have the lyrics to support that. Well, in the same way, with every song, we have a tonal center. Unless you're listening to 12-tone or atonal music, which none of you guys listen to. Or you wouldn't be watching us. So there's a tonal center, and what that tonal center basically is, it's hidden. A lot of people don't know what it is, where it's at, and all that stuff. But it goes like this: there's a tonal center. It's like the sun in the center of the universe with all the planets revolving around it.
Cosmic.
I'm very cosmic, dude. and everything kind of comes back to that note, and depending on what that note is, depends on what all the other chords are. 1, 4, and 5 in major keys are major. 2, 3, and 6 are minor. And the 7th chord is diminished. Now we can break those rules as we talked about, but you're saying like, how do we know what chords follow each other? And so this, you're gonna have to watch this back because you probably won't retain all this. But the most widely used chord is the 1 chord. It has to, because that's coming back home. You got to come back to the 1 chord. At the end of a song, you gotta end it. Yay, everybody cheers, right? That's the 1 chord that you're hearing, where it has that resolution. The 4 and the 5 chord are the next chords that you would use the most. And I mean, there's a million country songs, just 1, 4, 5. And then if you want to start getting into like pop music, throw the minor 6 in there, 1 minor 6, 4, 5, or any combination of those 4 chords, and you will have like every hit song since the history of ever. And if you just get good, right? Yeah. Seriously, if you just get good at using the 1, minor 6, 4, 5 in any chord progression, that's the way to go. If that doesn't make sense to you, there's videos on YouTube about that make sense of that. It's the Nashville number system. Do you have anything you want to say about that?
I was craving a piece of paper. Do you have a piece of paper in here somewhere?
You probably have to.
It'd be bigger, right? So
no paper.
So what you can do is, write out like a C major scale, which is easy because there's no sharps or flats, right? So it's, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Mm-hmm. And if you're looking at C is number 1, right? And then it's D and E, right? F and G. If you just take the first note and you skip over the 2nd note to the 3rd note, and then skip over the 4th note to the 5th note. Those are the notes in your first chord. And if you just keep doing that pattern, then you go to the next note in the scale, which would be D. So you skip over.
So the 2, the 4, and the 6.
Yeah, you skip over the one after that, and then you go, and you're just getting clusters of 3 notes.
Yes.
Right. So write out.
We call our triads.
Yeah, triads, and then you can do that in any key as long as you know that scale shape. You can do it anywhere. Right.
You don't have to know the notes, the names of the notes.
Right. So you just, you skip over that 2nd note, and then my next would be, okay, so these 2 notes are part of that first chord, and then skip over that note to the next one. Right? So those are the notes.
And that's why our G chord looks like that.
And so that's how you create, a progression or chords out of a scale.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because if you know if you know the notes of a Mixolydian scale, but you don't know the chord progression, you can do that same thing, and you'll find out what the chords are in any mode or.
Yeah, indeed. Don't like some of the things that we're saying. If they're intimidating, if they're overwhelming, just take it with a grain of salt, because really there's so many different ways to do it. What's going on in Brett's head is different than what's going on in my head. I saw a great jazz player downtown Nashville was just doing some great stuff, and I went up to him afterwards and I asked him, I said, hey, how are you thinking about these chords? Are you like, okay, that mode belongs to that chord and what have you? And he's like, I don't really know any modes or scales or anything.
You'd be surprised how many
I'm like, well,
ripping players.
I'm like, well,
don't.
how do you know what to do? And he says, well, basically, I'm just taking the chord.
Yeah.
Again, what we're talking about is just taking the chord. But then I know you guys have done this before, where you're like, okay, here's a note. Well, will this note sound good with it? Yeah, it sounds good. Okay, with this note, maybe not. And so, but when you're outlining a chord here, you can always get out on a limb and go, well, let's pick some other note out of the chord. And that's what this guy was doing.
Yeah.
He's like, he would find the chord, he'd shape up, he'd play some notes out of the chord, but then he'd start experimenting with other notes that that you'd say, well, I know I can go a half step or a whole step up. Look, you're not talking about, you don't need to shred up here in one thing. You're talking one other note. In a chord that you're at, just one note.
You'd be shocked about how many players don't know theory. Like a guy I know used to manage Slash, and he would say he figures out his scale just with half steps and whole steps. Like, okay, does that work? Okay, that sounds okay. And 100%. Literally no
I used to
theory.
do that as a kid. Yeah,
and just look at what they've done. All those guys, Van Halen, even Tim Pierce, who's like, if you don't know who Tim Pierce is, you got to look him up, but one of the most famous session musicians of all time. And like, we'll be playing together or teaching together, and he's like, what pentatonic position is that? Like, he doesn't know, you know? And it's like, well, how do you solve this? I just see chords everywhere. Like, very basic. If I can impart one thing to any aspiring soloist, just learn the chords.
Be simple.
Learn the cage system, like Pinnacle, learn that, and learn a pentatonic scale. Combine those two things together, and you can go anywhere in the guitar universe you want to go.
100% true. 100% true. And it's like, the pentatonic, or the pentatonic scale, you say, okay, I know it, and I know the cage system, well, I still can't solo. Well, obviously, you need to massage, you need to work with the clay. You've got great clay, and then you got to massage it, you got to work it, and go, okay, that's kind of what I'm looking at for. Okay.
Yeah, and
you got to work it.
It's as simple as like finding a couple different shapes of a chord, right? And being able to, like if you have A, D, and E, right? It's literally taking those little 3-note clusters and trying to make melodies out of those.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It can be as simple as that, right? And that, if anything, is almost the most important, because you're playing right out of those chord shapes, so it automatically is melodic.
Yes.
And it teaches you to hear chords as you're playing.
Yeah.
Rather than, I think this approach. Okay, I can solo in A minor now. Like that approach isn't the right approach. The approach is
it's halfway there. You got the tools,
right? And it's like knowing, you got an A minor chord here, an A minor chord here. So over that one chord, it starts to make sense with the riffs, right? And then you have this, right? And you're just playing
right out of the chord,
those notes, and your D minor comes. And then back to that A minor. Well, change it up and move up.
Yeah.
And that's just an A minor chord right there.
Yeah.
The same thing when the E comes around,
Yeah.
And then you got here.
Which is actually what Brett's doing there, where he plays the chord and then he riffs over the top of it. That's a fantastic practice to do too, because it forces you to say, well, there's that form, there's that form, there's that form.
That's what you want.
And it's constantly under your fingers.
No.
So Jay, is it compulsory to always go with music theory when we compose? Absolutely not. Music theory is helpful when you're communicating with other musicians, and sometimes if you need to get from one place to someplace else, and you're like, how did I do that? Then it's nice to have definitions that you can say, well, this chord and this makes that sound. So that's where music theory is good. Good
set of guidelines.
It's a good set of guidelines.
And if you want to get creative and you're stuck in a certain, a certain thing that you do all the time, it can help teach you, learn about what modulation is, like how to put two keys together and stuff like that. So, and if you're a composer, a lot of times theory's really good to know because it gives you options.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Are there other pentatonic scales? Obviously, there's other pentatonic forms, but there's only one pentatonic scale. It's a 5-note scale, but you can play it in all different ways on the neck. But you take literally, this is the pentatonic scale.
Yeah.
You can just play that all over the neck. You'll have all the places put together. So I actually have a lesson on that. How that form right there, if you just take that form and just any place that you have an A.
Yeah. Oh, right.
You could
thought
just,
of it like that.
Right, I know. Yeah, I hadn't either, and I watched another guy's video that made me
hilarious.
go, if I think about it like that.
Yeah.
It's just, again, right? It's like we've been playing for guitar for how long? We never thought about that. And a lot of times what I've found is when I get together, if you don't get together with other guitar players, you got it. The more you do it, the better.
For sure.
Because everybody thinks differently. And when I sit down with somebody and I'm doing that, and they're saying, think about it this way. A lot of times if I'm on stage or I'm practicing or I'm soloing or whatever, recording, and I run out of ideas for a particular way that I think, I might pull out maybe something that Brett showed me or something that my buddy Johnny has showed me, a certain way to think about the neck. And now all of a sudden these different phrases come out.
Yeah.
It's like tapping into, it's like channeling, another player almost,
So Lou's saying if, let's say that I'm playing an F sharp minor chord and going to an E chord, that's all I got. I got stuck.
Let's say that I'm playing an F sharp minor.
Okay, so I'll give you some other chords you can play. You got...
You understand the question?
Yeah, you can go to B. Especially if you do power chords. You don't make a major or minor. Right? You can go to here. A. That's good enough for any rock song.
Yeah. Randy, there's a Randy saying, show us some Randy Rhoads-like scales. Can you show us some Randy Rhoads-like scales?
Randy Rhoads typically use...
pentatonic.
Yeah, pentatonic and minor scales.
Yeah, really, what we're showing you right now.
Nothing too fancy, Like if you, so that's... There's your pentatonic scale. Oftentimes what Randy Rhoads would do is he'd put minor pentatonic, or in minor... scale, natural or minor or whatever you call it. So you might do like a, or that kind of.
Yeah. So lots of blues in there, but then he'll throw in some.
Yeah. The only real songs where you get kind of out of that is when you go into like Diary of a Madman and stuff where he starts getting a little bit more complex with his. Maybe harmonic minor thrown in there or something like that. But he's the perfect, if you want to understand basic, modal concepts, is like the perfect guy to go with.
Yeah.
Because he's a very educated classical player, but he makes it.
But he's very simple. Very simple in the way that he plays.
Yeah, his playing's amazing. He's one of my favorites. That tribute album, God, it's so good.
Well, what tribute album? Oh,
Randy Rhoads tribute.
Stuff?
Yeah, it's my favorite Aussie album of all time. It's so good.
Yeah, phenomenal. Okay, 1974 Gibson Les Paul Custom Ivory giveaway, please. Okay. So basically if we're in the key of C.
I'll take one of those too.
Yeah. And there's an F chord, then we can use F Lydian shape, right?
Ooh. That's a question for you.
So, and I'm terrible with my modes. I got to think about Lydian for just a minute.
Lydian's full sax mode.
Yeah, it's Lydian Mixolydian. So we got Ionian, Dorian, Lydian, Mixolydian. So Lydian is a minor scale. If I'm saying that correctly, if there's anybody else out there who knows that it's not that, that's okay. I'm not claiming to be some I just don't use the modes. But with that being said, you wouldn't be able to use a minor scale over a major chord because it's just not gonna sound very nice unless you're using. What were you gonna say? So you gonna say something about that?
No.
Yeah, really, you're not going to use that. So if it's an F major chord, basically what we're saying is you could do a few different things. Mm-hmm. Number one, you could use F major pentatonic. You could use F major, or you could just play the chord and find out your little noodle notes, which is kind of what we're talking about here. And there are these shapes that just start appearing every single time. Oh, somebody's asking about the shirt. Target.
sriracha shirt.
Oh man, I was wondering. I was too embarrassed to ask, so thank you, whoever asked that. Now I know. All right. Let's see. 74 Les Paul, please. Okay, I want to learn how.
What's significant about a 74? Is that like?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's a special.
I mean, if you're shooting for the moon, like go 59. Les Paul.
59, right? 59, 58. I want to learn how chords can be combined, like A minor, E minor, A minor, F7, something like that, something like harmony. George, yeah, that's a fairly broad subject. That's a fairly broad subject, but it goes like this. Every major key, major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. Write it down, memorize that. That is the key that you're looking for. And it works for minor keys, it works for all the modal keys, works for everything. If you just remember, you're going through the scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, you know the scale. Then for each one of those notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, you've got a chord. And it goes major, major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, which we don't use very often, and then...
What is it when you do a minor chord progression?
Minor chord progression is the same thing, it's just you're starting at a different note. So,
okay. The sequence of chords is the same, but you're starting from a different chord.
Yeah, so in this case, you would start on the 6th.
Oh, okay.
So like if G is our 1, right? We have G, A, B, C, D, F sharp. So if we were starting on the minor, so for any major key, if you're in G, if you want to find the minor equivalent key, which is called the relative minor, you just go down 3 half steps. And there's our E minor. If we were in the key of C major, you go down 3 half steps. And we're in A minor. If we're in D, go down 3 half steps. In the key of B minor.
And does it follow the same
vice versa.
sequencing though?
It's the same exact sequencing.
So it's like the major and minor pentatonic scales.
Exactly.
It's the same thing.
That's exactly. And the more you think about exactly what Brett just said there is that you've got major and minor pentatonic. Yeah. So if we're playing in A minor. So we got that. But if we were playing C major. We're playing the same exact. Yeah. It's the same exact chords, it's the same exact melodies, but I always compare it to two people who are talking about a controversial subject, but they two different things. One guy's pro-war, the other guy's anti-war. They're talking about guns and lives and tanks and freedom and everything else, and they're talking about the same things, but they're talking about it from different angles. Yeah. And that's how I think about major and minor, is that really it's just like this tonal shift. Yeah. And if you listen to Pink Floyd, especially a song like
Every Day,
like Comfortably Numb, they're going in and out. They're going B minor, D major, B minor, D major. They do it like from the verse. The verses are minor and the choruses are in D major.
Yeah. And one thing to think about too, just like we said, the scale shape is the same for major and minor. The scale shape is the same for all the modes too. The same 3-note per string patterns.
Say that again?
So just like, because a lot of times you think, oh God, there's 7 modes. I kind of like...
Right,
whatever.
Yes.
Right, but just as minor pentatonic and, A minor pentatonic and A major pentatonic have the exact same set of whole steps and half steps and all that
100%.
Stuff. Right? It's the same thing. Like, if I wanted to do an A minor scale... 3-note per string pattern. Mm-hmm. But if I do that exact same shape I just did right here, and I move it up a whole step and start with this note, it's a Mixolydian scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the same shape.
Yeah.
Right? So there's only 7 shapes to learn.
Yeah.
There's only, 5 pentatonic shapes to learn.
Yeah.
It's just what chords you apply that to.
Exactly.
The modes. And
when people always ask me about modes, I say, do you like jazz?
Right.
No, I don't like jazz. All right, don't worry about the modes.
Right.
Because, I mean...
Unless you like Satriani. He's a modal dude.
Yeah, and Yngwie Malmsteen uses them sometimes and what have you, but it's really for an effect. Yeah. It's not like...
It's color. Splash.
It's a little splash of color, yeah. To just change... So, like, if you took a minor scale that wasn't the natural minor scale, you're going to change that sound just a little bit. Uh-oh.
You broke something.
I went into my Van Halen. All right, Papastache, what's your favorite song to play?
That's a great question. I'm a big fan of Panama. I like that song a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a great question. I like just creating stuff and noodling around.
Yeah.
But that's a fun one. I love playing Hendrix stuff.
Yeah.
You know. I don't know.
When it plays an acoustic guitar, he slides the bar chords, can't stand the squeal of new strings. Does anyone else have this problem? Yep, everybody does. It's your fingerprints against the strings.
Yeah.
That's so we know it's you're playing guitar, not keyboard.
And
so it's
I
good.
heard an amazing guitar player doing that very thing. Like phenomenal world class guitar. And you hear that.
Sure.
I mean, it's just.
I think as you start
beast.
playing more, you're just like, what's the guitar? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Yeah, you can keep it back a little bit.
And then if you do it rhythmically, you can be like
sure.
scratching. That's
Or
or you can do Atomic Punk.
All right. All right. When I'm creating a melody, what key you're wanting to play in? I'm not sure. I don't know the name of that song, so sorry. Can you listen to Eddie Medina and show me how to play this? No, we can't for this broadcast. Sorry. Nice middle of the day supersize for us retired guys. Good. You're welcome. Okay, I can't understand that one. Sorry. Okay, we're moving forward here. How to add jazzy sound. How to add jazzy sound. Well, throwing some other notes out of your scale and not just sticking to the pentatonic scale is a great way to add some jazzy sounds. Also,
slide into your pentatonic scale with like a half step below.
So show me what you mean.
Going,
yeah.
you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Taking notes that exactly what Papa said. I find myself doing that a lot too. So like if you're playing just regular pentatonic here, or you know,
or coloring in between the lines. So you got right. You can all these notes are valid. So
100%, yeah. And people say, well, how do you know what notes and how do you know how long to stay on them? Don't overthink it. It's just like talking. And I always compare grace notes. Those are called grace notes, right? When you just like tweak a note for just a second.
Yeah.
The cool thing about that is you could hit 10 wrong notes in a row, but if they're grace notes and you do it right, it sounds even cooler because it's like it's a nuance.
Builds tension too.
It's like saying what's up. You know, if I say what's up, you know I mean what is up. But that sounds goofy, so I'm gonna say what's up, and that means well, listen, all those notes aren't in the scale.
Yeah.
But you're forgiving, right? You're saying, well, that's fine. He's just sliding up. Well, same thing. If you apply that concept to
it's like in that Van Halen song, hear about it later at the very end of the solo. He literally is climbing up one note at a time. It's like, and then he hits that note on the one,
and you're like, yes,
that was beautiful.
Yeah, right. Sure, you know where he's going.
Yeah.
You know. Welcome. That's what you always say.
That's
right?
true.
Welcome,
it is.
welcome. All right. Right. Really love the song "Over the Hill" by John Martin. If you guys know the tune and would like to break it down in the context of the melodies, I don't know them. I
live in a cave. I don't.
What is the main difference between major and minor? Well, it depends on what we're talking about. We're talking about chords or we're talking about scales, but technically...
If it's a chord,
yeah,
it's just one note right here.
It's the third of the chord. So a triad is a 1, 3, and a 5, and a minor chord is a 1 flat 3, 5. That's why when you look at your E minor chord, it looks like that, and E major looks like this. That's the third. That's the one note that Papa's talking about there. Same thing with major and D major, D minor, D major. Here's minor, here's major. Same thing with A minor, A major. That one note is called the third, and that's the difference of major and minor. I know about the diminished chords, but I can't find a diminished scale. So what notes using in C diminished scale?
That's an Ingve question.
Yes. Diminished is really easy to build. Basically, take any note, and this is the other cool thing about this is that it's an easy scale to build Because basically the only thing you do is you put 2 frets in between each note. So for instance, if we wanted to play C diminish, here's C. You skip 2 notes, you play that note. Skip 2 notes, play this note. Skip these 2 notes, play this. You know? You know,
Look
that's
at you.
kind of little Ingve little lick there, or backwards. So yeah, you could do that.
Ah, the good old days.
Yeah, right. So that's and there's other things that you can do with the diminished scale, but those that's like one of the easier ways to find that out. You know. I feel like a second grader in calculus class. So much to learn. It is, but it's not.
Start with the pentatonic scale.
Start with the easy stuff because
Learn major and minor. Yep. Pentatonic scales.
Yeah.
Like I said, I promise you, if you just can see the chord shapes inside of those scales,
Yes.
it's
everything,
magic.
absolutely everything. It's
Yeah.
the number one thing you should be doing. All right, love that. You were mixing major and pentatonic on that last lick. That would have been this guy here. Love how you're keeping it simple. Good. Okay, so for some, we're keeping it simple. Very informative.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And if you want to add excitement to your solos but don't know what to do, I am a big, like I keep saying, color in between the lines. You know, like you get, say we're in A minor pentatonic, and you just jam it over kind of a rock, you know. It's coloring in between those lines. So like here, you know, that kind of stuff where you're filling in those notes. Or even here, like the third position. Right?
Yeah.
Can you play those chords?
Which chords?
Just A, C, D. Right, so if you're using minor pentatonic, you go like. Right, you can. Right, you just color it in there.
Yeah.
Right, I'm just taking that one scale and I'm filling in those notes.
So what you're thinking? What key for that?
That's A minor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so all I'm doing is I'm taking my
Yeah, sure.
positions. And where I have, you know, whole steps apart, I'm just adding all those notes. You know, you hear Van Halen do it all the time. And it's just adding in those notes in the middle. I mean, technically that's mixing major and minor, but don't think of it that way for now.
Right, yeah.
Right? Just think of it as filling in those gaps. And then you can get all those crazy... And then that's where I get all the... It's an A minor scale. I'm just filling in those notes in the middle.
Yeah,
You know, so
fun.
that just can add excitement to, you know, like Stevie Ray, you know, or when that one note. Where, it's just adding that. You're just filling in the gaps.
Yeah. Beautiful, man. Love your playing, man.
No,
love it. I love it.
Just stop.
It's beautiful. All right, what else we got here? How do you know which chords are major and minor in different modes? Brian, that question doesn't make sense the way you're saying it, but you know,
Google will tell you. Say A mixolydian progression, and you'll get your answer.
How do you know which chords are major and minor in different modes? Well, here's the deal. Again, I have to ask the question. If you like jazz, then ask that question. If you don't like jazz,
but like if you look at standard shapes, like if we take a progression in all bar chords, and you knew that this was a major shape, right? Any of the chords that are going to have this finger in the bar chord shape is a major chord. Any of the ones that look like this that don't have this finger on it is a minor chord. So if you go up that scale, you're going to know, okay, if it has this shape to it, it's major. If it has this shape to it,
yeah, I don't know if he's
minor.
asking. I don't know if he's asking I don't know if he's asking the chord shape, like, or just what. But if you're going kind of what Brett's talking about there, basically there's a third. The third of the chord, if it's major, then you'll use some sort of major mode over it. If it's minor, then if it's a minor chord, then you'll use a minor form. So for instance, if you were using like A minor 7, you could use a natural minor, or you could use a Dorian.
Is that the Carlos Santana scale?
Yeah, yeah, it is actually. It's A minor. It's A Dorian. Is what it is. All right. Good. All right. Tony Maggiano, I agree with you. Marty Schwartz is amazing. I want to see you. He's a good guy. I want to see you two jam your favorite song.
Oh man.
Minor chords and a flat.
That'll be next time.
All right. Man, favorite chord progression. I think for me, it's got to be the blues chord progression. I don't know why. Probably just because I've listened to it so much. But to me, it's just like, it doesn't get old.
Yeah.
And you can do so many different things to it. That's my favorite chord progression. And that's a 1-4-5 progression, the simplest of chord progressions.
Yeah, I'm pretty much, I think I like that too. I think a lot of times when I'm jamming.
You like that Americana kind of rock, yeah. And I do too, yeah, let's go.
Anywhere I can start major and then end on a minor. Right?
Yeah.
Like Black Crowes style chord progressions.
Yeah,
I think that's
totally.
my favorite.
Totally.
Yeah.
What sort of things have you guys done back in the groove of practicing after having fallen off for a while?
Metronome. Kick back the metronome. I like to practice too. Like if you have an Apple computer, I'm sure PCs have the same thing, but Apple has Logic or GarageBand, and they have a bunch of drum loops.
Yes.
So I like practicing to drum loops, whether it's scale, like I'm doing my noodling.
Yeah.
Or practicing playing rhythm, just picking like 3 chords.
Yes.
And playing to grooves. I think that's my favorite, because then it gets the brain going and like fires me up.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, having something a goal in mind, or something to challenge you. I always say that guitar playing is this constant balance between what you know and what you don't know, or what's fun to play and what's challenging to play. And if you're just playing stuff that's fun all the time, and you're not challenging yourself, you're probably going to get bored and you're just not going to get better. If you're challenging yourself so much that it's just not fun, you're probably not going to pick up the guitar much, so you don't want to do that, Eric Shivers is saying, can you talk about how the Edge uses arpeggios in order to build complex, simple forms? Do you want to field that, or you want me to?
I'd say he takes the most basic chord progressions you can think of, makes them into a 3-note cluster of like a triad, and then adds a dotted eighth delay to it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say if I had. That's
you can take like a chord and have that delay and add like a suspended to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you're doing something like that.
Yeah. Yep.
But when you have that delay on it, it has that really big ethereal. Yeah.
Yeah, I always found
to the chord shape.
One that you can start with is that D shape. Like, he loved that one. He just slide that right up.
Yeah.
And then you've got all those little noodle notes along with it. You've got your
all the different suspended notes.
And so that along with the delay, you could do some really fun stuff.
Yeah, and if you don't know how to do that, Set your if you have any sort of modern delay pedal, set the level of the pedal high, right? So it's past. So say it's like if we're looking at a clock, it would be like at 1 to 2 o'clock.
What are they? What's that setting?
The level,
feedback?
the mix.
Oh, the level. Okay.
So the amount of delay that you get.
Yeah.
Set like 4 repeats, and then if it has a dotted eighth note function to it, click that, and it's instant U2 land.
And that's this sound right here. This is a dotted quarter. What are you saying? Dotted eighth. Dotted eighth. Yeah. And what happens is instead of the note falling right on top of, it falls in between the two notes that you're doing.
Yeah. That's like Run Like Hell too in Pink Floyd. Yeah. Very similar, but it does not a dotted eighth. He just gets in between it.
Or that's the other one too. Yeah. Run Like Hell. Yep. Okay, Popeye just showed up, and I'm wondering if I'm in an alternate universe. You are.
That would be awesome if you were. If you could pop in and out of alternate universes, that'd be amazing. Show me how. I'm ready. I'm ready for that.
When you're purchasing a guitar in the guitar shop, what sum do you play? No Stairway. What's something I play?
Song.
Oh. I try to get the most obnoxious, loud,
like Hendrix, like
punk,
Woodstock.
Yeah. I just test the feedback. I'll be like, people are like, that guy's here. That guy's here again.
He's here again. I just play open position chords to see if it sounds good when you ring through the chord.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny in a store anymore because, especially in Nashville, my God, you go into the store and everybody's like, it's just phenomenal. So I think I've always been so insecure when I'm playing it, so I just want to take the guitar and go home.
There's like 3-year-olds in Nashville that are mind-blowing.
That will kill, that will slay me.
He just pulled a diaper out of his slide, and now he's slide out of his diaper, and he's just ripping.
It's messy. It's messy blues.
That's right. That's how I get down and dirty.
I'm pooping at a Circle K in a small town in Illinois right now. Nice,
Sweet.
Justin. Nice.
That's awesome.
I'm glad that you let us know
and it just goes to show you technology is amazing. So you don't have to draw on the wall anymore because you're bored. You can just watch
letting everybody know I'm pooping in a small town in a Circle K. It's amazing. How do I mix the major and minor pentatonics? Okay, so we talked about that a bit.
Start by adding the major third to minor. Right? So and this is the simplest way to do it. Add that note. And then realize that there's octaves when you do that. So this is position 1, so. But then in position 2 it would be down here. Up, down, lower. So you can go. That's a good place to start.
Yeah.
But just think
what about the idea of playing a minor lick and then following it up with a major lick?
You can do that too. And then you can also, I think what started opening the door for me is realizing if I'm in position 1 of A minor, because I like to think out of the minor boxes, even if it's when I'm mixing major minor. Yeah. Inside position 1 of minor pentatonic is position 2 of major pentatonic. So position 1's right here. But inside that is major pentatonic position 2. So that tells me, okay, well now those notes are all legal.
Now hold on. What do you mean that it's inside there? What do you mean?
Okay, so here's minor box 1.
Yeah.
Well, if you think of majors right here, same thing, right?
Okay.
Here's your major A major pentatonic scale. As you move up,
I see what you're saying. Sure. Okay.
You're sliding in position 2's right there.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
Right. Yeah, then you just follow that up with the next position. So if you're here,
so stop right there real quick because I'm going to clarify that because if I just got it, I know there's other folks there who aren't. Okay. So what Brett's saying is, if you understand this concept that the pentatonic scale can be used, one form of the pentatonic scale can be used in any major or minor key. Amen. To the end of time. Here's A minor. Here's that form. Right?
The style of the edge.
In the style of the edge. So there it is, minor pentatonic. But if we wanted to play A major pentatonic, the only thing we got to do is go boop. Yeah. Put our pinky right where that A was, and now that's
Right.
major pentatonic. And so what Brett's saying is this is form 1, and if
Yeah.
we did form 2 of this, then basically we would be up here,
Yeah.
and that mixed with our minor pentatonic
Yeah.
is
So,
getting that minor
yeah.
and major sound at the
So
same time.
when you're in 1 minor, you're in 2 major,
Yeah.
right? So it's just up 1. And then that's where it's cool. You get all those. Right, so this is where you get like the, and knowing where your like the A chords are.
Yeah.
So you can mix it like that. And that would be kind of a major sound.
Yeah.
But you could also do it more hard rock and utilize. I know that position 3 is right there. And major, but it's position 2 in minor.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
you can do it like that,
Yeah.
So you start to realize how, what the scale turns into. So that's why I like throwing major into the minor boxes.
Yeah, that's
right?
very
and then,
cool.
And then when you add that last blues note in there, this note, then you start getting, and that's when you get all that crazy stuff.
Yep.
And crazy notes every night.
My wife's a songwriter, and she she's a fantastic songwriter. Thank you.
With a bunch of big records on the wall.
I know she embarrasses me, and because everybody's like, "Did you play on all those records?"
Yeah.
I'm like,
she's written songs with just real small.
That's all my wife.
Real small people you probably never heard of.
No,
Garth Brooks.
It's just some tiny artists. But she talks about all the time about she experiences this, and then she's heard other writers talk about it. Making a mistake in either recording or writing where you hit the wrong chord or you hit the wrong note. And a lot of times, because of our paradigms, our models of where we think we should be and everything, we don't go to those places. So it takes a mistake sometimes.
Yeah.
And I did this with a song that I wrote called Sown in Tears. It was on a little EP that I did.
Emo.
Yeah, very emo, yeah. And I got this little lick in there where I go... and there's
right,
and there was 2 notes in there or whatever that I normally wouldn't have grabbed, but I kind of just did this run, and I always recorded when I was like trying to come up with a solo, and I'm like, that's it, and then I'd listen to it and then come up with it, and I'm like, even though I didn't mean that, that's gonna be the lick because that's awesome, and then it makes it into the solo.
Very Setzer of you.
Very Setzer? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Little Setzer, sure. I wish.
Talk about a maniac on
he's
guitar.
a beast, man. Okay. All right.
Marty know I'm cheating on him. No, Marty would be here too. We're just in a different state right now.
I'm digging this big time. You guys should do it more often. We will. In fact, Papa's gonna be here for a little while, and we're gonna do some stuff. So, what do you recommend someone who finds themselves trying to start practicing soloing, but ends up feeling robotic, stiff, uninteresting, or noodling? Eli, watch this whole video over again. Mm-hmm. That's what I'd say to do. Watch this whole video over again. Don't worry about a bunch of scales. The 2 things that I can recommend for anybody is, and the one will be from Brett, is chords. Follow your chords. Know where your chords are at all times as the chord progression's going by. That will help you sound more intelligent if you're outlining the chord and stealing some of those notes from the chords as you're playing them, all right? Number 1. Number 2, like for me, it was so helpful to memorize guitar solos. Learn every guitar solo from every great guitar player that you can, or just learn one. Start with one phrase, because what happens is inevitably you start playing, and then you're like, oh, dude, I could do that little thing there. I remember when you just played, right? Mm-hmm. And the first solo I ever had, the first band, the first lick was. That was the first. It was a more happy up. Yeah. This is from what was it? Goodbye to Romance. That's Randy Rhoads, and my first lick was. That was it, and so. But if you listen to the 2, you would never be like, "Oh no, he totally stole that lick," because you just tweak something a tiny bit. These are licks that have been used thousands and thousands of times over.
I would say go learn like Gilmore solos.
Oh yeah, because they're so musical.
Most people could do them, technically. technique-wise.
Yeah.
Not too fast, but man, just every note's gold. And then go from there.
Yeah.
They would have been included. They're just miles apart, Justin and Marty.
It's Justin.
We'll all have to meet out like in L.A. one
God,
day.
would that be fun?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be good. Or Marty comes out to Nashville, so maybe we'll get Justin to fly over the pond.
Exactly.
I've never met Justin. That would be fun.
No, I haven't either. I've talked to him.
Yeah.
We did an interview the other day.
Oh, did you?
For his podcast.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
I don't know if that came out or not,
Yeah.
but okay, we talked about arpeggios. Hey guys, love the convo. What are some songs you love recommend jamming to with a group of friends? Yeah, we're going to end this in about 5 minutes, my friends. Yeah?
Hendrix song? Like Purple Haze?
That you love jamming to. Yeah. I love Hey Joe.
Yeah.
Which is all major chords. C major, G.
What scale is that? You play the E minor? It's E minor, right?
I'm just, I'm kind of doing that whole little like follow the scale thing here, follow the chord bit there, but the chord progression's yeah. Like that would be a perfect example of kind of thinking the way Brett was talking about, was that you have a major chord here, you got a major chord, you got a major chord, you got a major chord, and you literally could be outlining each one of those chords, and you could also be thinking a new major pentatonic scale over each one of those chords.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, which
that was a mind-blowing thing that I never thought of, and then Hendrix does that in Little Wing.
Yeah.
When he does the...
Yeah.
Right? I was always like, what is he doing there? And he's like, oh my God, he's playing the major scale for each one of those chords.
Yeah.
In each one of those keys.
Which is really funny, because I before we turn the camera on here, I was mentioning to Brett that the first solo that I ever did in that first band, what I did is I followed the chords, and I said, okay, we're playing a C major here, so I'm going to play the C pentatonic. And then with G chord, I'll play G pentatonic. And somehow I got it to work.
Yeah.
But like I was just following the chords. I wasn't like, okay, whereas now the way I think is I think more, okay, I'm in this chord progression, here's the scale that I would use, but be mindful of the chords.
Right.
So,
mind the chords. Is that like mind the gap?
Mind the chords.
When you're in England?
Mind the what?
Mind the gap.
What's the gap?
It's like when you step over into the subway.
Oh, mind the gap. Is there someone there who says that?
I think what was it in that I saw that in a movie? Mind the gap. It was awesome.
Yeah. It sounds familiar.
Is that right?
Yeah.
All those English people out there?
Mind the gap.
I can't remember.
So with that being said, you can just play those pentatonics or the chord shapes, and that brings in a bunch of new notes. But to me, like if you play like that all the time, it sounds very like following the chord. You know what I mean? So, but just throwing a little bit of spice in there.
Go back and forth, like
makes it sound cool.
Yeah, you got the. Yeah, I like to think of it as the beautiful girl with the chipped tooth. She's pretty, and then she smiles, and it's got a little angst.
Yeah, but you're like,
but
I dig the chipped tooth.
I do. It gives her character. It's like she's really beautiful, and then she smiles, and it's like, oh, but you've got a story. So, you know,
a girl with a chipped tooth.
Principle. So that's like if you're doing, you know, like a pretty lick, you know.
That's the chipped tooth
That's
right
the chipped
there.
tooth
Nice.
right there at the end.
I love it.
Uh-huh.
All right. Cool, Papastache. Hey, it might be a touch silly to ask, but do you have any recommendations on how to differentiate yourself or start to find your own style?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have something to say about that?
I do. Take a lick of your favorite artist, Gilmore or something like that for me. learn the exact lick, and then immediately take that lick and do it again with 2 different notes in there somewhere.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
And then once you start doing that with a bunch of different people who you like and their styles, and you change their licks and tweak it just a little bit, and then you start to throw that big pot, give it a stir.
Yeah.
All of a sudden,
everything starts adding up. It's like, I think people are always looking for that panacea to get them to there real quick. And the best thing I'd say is to just enjoy the process, and each little bit that you learn will make you a better player. But like, not any one thing is going to do it.
No.
It just doesn't work that way. It's like all these things put together that makes this complex sound from a player, and it's typically a lot of the players that they listen to growing up.
It is. And learn the first 30 seconds of a song that you like, and see what you can create from that, in that kind of a style.
Yeah.
I think I was watching, reading something about Brad Paisley, and he was like, taking, what he was talking about, Clapton's song Cocaine, and he's like, take those same notes and then change the title to Caffeine, and change 2 notes.
Nice.
Like,
yeah.
But it's true. Everyone's just tweaking somebody else's style. I mean, Hendrix took from players.
I saw some meme the other day, and it was pretty brilliant, but it was basically like, I was talking about like, who Slash thought was cool, and it went back. It went all the way back to it was Slash back to from Aerosmith. Joe Perry.
Yeah.
And Joe Perry, it was, I forgot whoever, and then it went back to Rolling Stones, and then it went back to Johnny B. Good, Chuck Berry. And so it's like, it's just true. It's like there's this lineage, and you've got, and it's great because when you are learning a solo, this is why I think it's so important to learn songs, is when you're learning a solo, if you're learning Jimmy Page solo, you're not just learning Jimmy Page licks.
Yeah.
You're learning freaking Robert Johnson licks and everybody else too. So like, that's the whole standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah. I think when you watch extreme sports, it's the perfect example of that, because there's a guy who does the backflip, and then the guy that's like, the backflip's the new trick. How do I modify the backflip? Yeah. And then they do the backflip, and they take one hand off. Yeah, exactly. And then they do no hands. Exactly. I love it.
Who's the most intimidating guitar player?
Anybody in this town.
Right?
No, like personally, like to play with, or?
Nah, just who's the most intimidating, but I think they probably mean
I would say
listening to, or just who's a beast out there.
Technique-wise, the most terrifying guitar player I've ever seen would be Guthrie Govan. Yeah. Like, because he just is a beast at all styles. Yeah. But, like, Bukovac in this town, or...
a lot of names you guys may or may not hear of, like studio players.
A lot of the session guys in this town are ridiculous.
Yeah, a lot of guys that you've heard a lot, but you've never seen them.
Right.
You'll never see
them, but you don't know who they are.
If I 2 guys that come to mind, or 3 guys that come to mind right away. Yngwie Malmsteen, I friggin' that guy's a beast.
By the time he was
he's so good with
18,
melodies.
He was so good.
And so good with melodies. He's a fast player, but he's but melodic. Zach Wilde is like, to watch that guy play. I feel like he might kill me. He's so powerful and fast and not quite as melodic as the other guys, but fantastic nonetheless. And Eddie Van Halen is a freak. He's a freak.
He doesn't
of
count.
nature.
He's in the league of his own.
Yeah. Tim Pierce is a beast on guitar.
He is. Yeah. And if you guys don't know who Tim Pierce is, look him up. He's like rated one of the top 10 session musicians of all time. And I talk to you about this all the time. And you think of great improvisers, and everybody always defaults to like some blues musician, Joe Bonamassa, or somebody like that. But session musicians, somebody walks in the door with either a chord chart or a basic, like, here's my song. It goes something like this. And it's like, okay, well, that's, everyone's done that. Mm-hmm. And then these guys, in 1 or 2 takes,
make it sound
completely improvise. They know how to do their effects. They know how to do amps, guitars.
Acoustic, electric.
Yeah, acoustic, electric. Doesn't matter the style. Like Tim Pierce, it could be Adele one day, and it could be Bon Jovi the next day. Mm-hmm. Or in the same day. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's like they have songs in one, or parts in 1 or 2 takes all the way through the song. And it's something that came out of nowhere. Yeah. It's insane. They're like the best improvisers ever.
Yeah.
So if you don't know anything about session guitar players, Tim Pierce, there's Michael Landau, there's Tom Bukovac in this town, there's Rob McNally, there's all these guys that are just insane.
Got a couple kids knowing about Tim here.
Yeah,
so good.
insane. Well, Tim's got an amazing YouTube channel. It's so good.
Yeah, nice.
It's been great because I've been able to be with Tim a lot and actually go to sessions with him, and it's mind blowing. And then you get that guy in the room, but then you get 5 other guys that can do that on their own instrument, and it's like this just freaking magic created in this room, and it's insane. It's like like nothing you can ever imagine when 5 of those guys are in a room together.
Yeah.
And then you got that guy that can do that on the keyboards and that drummer, and like it's just crazy.
And they'll have, and I've experienced this firsthand because my wife's a songwriter, and she'll go and she'll have 5 songs at the end of the month or whatever that they're like, okay, these are the 5 songs we're gonna record, and they go in and literally they'll take an iPhone where the singer was sitting there just playing away, just la 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 la. Here's the song. They'll play it. One guy will literally chart the chords first time through just by ear. Here it is. They make photocopy. Everybody gets it. They go sit down, and the first take sounds like
magic.
An album.
Yeah. And
sometimes it might be the second take that they take. Third maybe.
Yeah, I think.
But really,
I think
first or second take, and then they do somebody may do some overdubs. But by then you've got the album cut.
I remember we were sitting in and Tim has this amazing, in his YouTube channel, you can see it, he does a lot of his music at his house, and they had some Israeli producer over, and then a guy that had also written songs with Madonna and just huge hits. He's written like 15 #1 hits.
Yes.
I forget what his name is. But so they're sitting there, and the guy was very specific about what he wanted from Tim.
Right.
As the song was being created.
Yeah.
So Tim's like, okay. And he's sitting there and he's doing exactly what the guy wants. And then the guy goes, okay, open 2 tracks. And now I'm not going to say anything, and I want you to do what you would do. And just do what you do.
Yeah.
And it was the craziest thing. He's got like NASA control. He's got amps behind him and all these pedals around him and whatever. But they literally press record, and he's playing, and like, he plays these amazing, like incredible parts, and then as the build up to the chorus comes in, you see him like come down and like tweaks his pedal, comes back, right, and starts adding this part. Now it's this big like part with delay on it, and then the chorus comes in and he just does a little, and this is all real time. Yeah. And it goes into this part, and both of the guys are just sitting there like, they were laughing at the end of the song because they could not believe.
Yeah.
In one live take, what he'd done, and the guys just like they were clapping at the end. They were supposed to.
I love it.
Yeah, but it's amazing. So definitely check out his channel. He's incredible guitar player.
Nice. Well, my friends, I think we are going to call it. That's about an hour and a half here today. So we just wanted to, in between doing other videos here, hanging out. Eating bean burgers and checking out guitars and guitar shops in Nashville here. We just figured we'd pop on here live. And I think we'll probably do it again, too. Yeah. Maybe we'll try to get in on your channel or maybe some Facebook stuff. So be looking out from now until, I don't know, mid-month or so. We'll be doing some stuff. So just keep an eye on Papa's. What is the official, any URLs, any channels that you want to throw out there, any products that you're doing right now? That the kids
right now,
just
go to Papastache 102 YouTube channel.
What is it? Papastache?
Papastache 102.
102.
Or you can look up my name, Brett Papa. And
if you guys have not checked out his stuff already, please do it. There's a lot of great teachers online, obviously, but Brett has a real mind for it, and he's a real player. Like he's, it's not like me. Where I can just teach. No, seriously, this guy's He's a great player. So listen to his stuff. Go to his channel. Check it out. Amazing conceptually and what have you. All right. And we're gonna be doing some more stuff on Facebook, more stuff on YouTube. So just be looking. Hit the bell. All that stuff. Twitter and all that. Where the kids hang out.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, brother.
Yeah.
Love you, man.
Oh, you too. Come on, man.
Great guy, right? Man. All right, kids.
Off to Frisbee.
Now we're going to go play some Frisbee. See ya.